Hosted by Ed Steer and Dan Bolter, Life in Digital explores the ever-changing media landscape with today's industry leaders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Life in Digital. Today I'm joined by Kianna Briggs, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Manager at Mediabrands UK and Social Media Manager at Black Recruiters Network. Hi Kianna.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm warmer today. It's not as cold outside, which I'm really grateful for.
Yeah. Happy New Year, everyone. It's been Baltic, I must say. But yeah, it is warmer today and the sunshine is out.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So, Kianna, I guess we'll kick off by if you could share your story and I guess your journey into the world of advertising in terms of what sparked your interest in the industry and how did that path lead you to your current role with Mediabrands?
Yeah, of course. So I graduated university some time ago. Where
did you go?
I went Roehampton, South East London. South London. And I graduated university and I studied English literature and media.
So did I.
I love reading, so I was like, let me do English.
Yeah.
And I liked writing as well. So initially, I wanted to be a journalist, which was like, yeah, great. I'm a journalist, I'm going to write for Vogue, etc. And then we had a module in our final year to research how much you make as your career, and it wasn't a lot. So I was like, right, change that completely. So then when I graduated from university, I became an estate agent. I left after 2 months. Honestly, I thought selling sunset, selling beautiful houses. It was so hard. I really struggled. And after about 2 months, I just said, you know what, this is for me. So I left, went back to retail, did retail for a year. And then I was like, right, I need to find a career. I need to get going. So I just Googled ways to make money and then recruitment came up. Okay. And then I saw 100k OT and I was like, oh my God, I'm doing 100k. I was 21. So I joined a recruitment company. I was there for 2 years and I did finance recruitment. I did PAs, EAs, ops, that sort of recruitment, but into recruitment companies. And then also into media companies. And that's when I first knew what media and advertising was. So when I got to go to client visits and I saw the office space, I was like, oh my God, this is a real thing out here.
Yeah.
And that's when my spark in advertising started. And then after 2 years in that company, I left and I went internal. So I became an internal recruiter. Yeah. But I joined a advertising company. And that was my first advertising sort of industry role, I would say. Okay. I absolutely loved it. I was like, yeah, this is a bit of me. Loved it.
That's your space.
Yeah, do you know what? I felt like I was myself. It wasn't as corporate as recruitment was. And although I was still doing recruitment, it didn't feel like work.
Exactly. And I guess it still kind of ties into your degree, your interests in terms of media. Yeah. And I guess almost journalism as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was literally they were calling me. So I was like, yeah, this is it. Then I did that for about a few years. I was the only recruiter for the whole company.
Wow.
But I still loved it. I was like, yeah, I'm killing it here. And then COVID came. And I was like, I need a job. So I applied I spoke to a recruiter that I'd known in the past and she got me an interview at a few other advertising companies. But Mediabrands stood out for me. Their recruitment process was so good. It was so warm and friendly and engaging. I was like, yep, sign me up. And then I joined Mediabrands.
Amazing. What an exciting journey. And I guess with your role at Mediabrands and what Mediabrands does in general, could you explain a little bit further?
Yeah, of course. So we are a advertising and marketing company. I would say Mediabrands kind of like the sister company. So we're called IPG Mediabrands, basically. IPG is the holding company. You've then got Mediabrands, and within Mediabrands, you've got other brands. If that makes sense.
Wowzers.
Yeah, so we're probably about, I think in the UK, we're about 1,300, 1,400 people. So quite a lot of people. Within Mediabrands, you've got different agencies that focus on different areas in media. Yeah. So you've got paid search, paid social, you've got planning and buying. And then I'm the D&I manager for all of Mediabrands.
Yes, that makes sense.
Team of one still, again. But we've got a head of D&I who supports our EMEA market as well.
Yeah, amazing. I guess one question as well is, how did you shift from that recruitment to the D&I space?
Well, it's a really interesting story. I basically said I didn't want to do recruitment anymore. So when I was in Mediabrands, I joined as a talent acquisition manager. I then got promoted to business partner and then promoted to senior business partner. And in recruitment, if anyone knows, when you're having a bad day, it really affects your mood.
Yeah.
And you can't help candidates, your mood changes. And I could see that was happening to me, but it was like every single day. And then I was like, okay, I'm not enjoying recruitment anymore. It's not what my heart is, not what my passion is. And by then, I've done it for about 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
I've done it for quite a long time. And then when I spoke to my manager at the time, I was quite vulnerable with her. So all the vulnerable guys speak up. But I just said, I don't think recruitment is for me anymore.
Yeah.
And then she was like, okay, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to focus more on like culture and inclusion. And we spoke about it, and she kind of was like, okay, I want to see what I can do. Didn't really hear anything for a few months, so I still continued in recruitment. I was still trying to deliver and still trying to achieve. And then after that, because of all the work that I was doing around our employee resource groups, inclusion, inclusive recruitment, etc., they kind of saw that I was kind of trying to incorporate D&I in my day job.
Yeah.
So our HR director reached out and said, this role has become available. Do you want to look into it? And that would start my journey.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that really highlights the importance of how you can evolve so much in your career. Maybe one thing worked for you a few years ago, and you can then sidestep, I guess, into different remits. And it's so good that they gave you that opportunity.
Yeah.
And kudos to you for lasting 8 years in recruitment. I had a little blip in my life where I tried it out, and I only lasted 8 months.
I understand.
So
did you not enjoy it?
I was okay at it, but I did not enjoy it.
Yeah. Recruitment is like, I always say, recruitment is one of those jobs where you have to love what you do.
Exactly. Yeah, I told myself I do love it. It's a matchmaking process, employer, employee.
Yeah.
But like you said, you do have those bad days, and it can really affect you.
Yeah.
So yeah, amazing. I guess shifting into that D&I role, what does that role look like for you?
Well, I'll tell you what everyone thinks my role is, and I'll tell you what I actually do.
Okay.
So everyone assumes that all I'm there to do is like organise events and party plan. And it's not that. Like, if it was that would be a dream, but it's not that. You're basically in a role where you've got to change the mindset of people, and you've got to change things that have been in a certain way for years. So, for example, when we look at D&I, there's 9 different protected characteristics, and you kind of got to focus on all of them. So age, gender, ethnicity, people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, etc. And you kind of got to make their voices heard in ways where it makes sense to the business. It doesn't look like a tick box exercise. It's authentic, and bear in mind you're a team of one, so it's so hard to do all of that. And some people, want you to champion them more. Some people are like, what about us? So that's a challenge in itself. So day to day, how I look at it is I look at our 3-year strategy, for example. So it might focus on gender or ethnicity or age, for example. And then you've got to find ways in which you can create change in the company. Everything that your business leaders are doing, is it being done inclusively as well?
Wow.
So it's challenging in a sense where you're constantly having to challenge and go up against people who are just stuck in their ways. You're in a system where it's not set up for people that look like me and you as well. So that's a challenge in itself. And then you've got people that just want to be heard. Exactly. They want to be seen, they want to be heard. They want to see people that look like them in positions of power. And that's something that takes decades to change.
Yeah. Wow. And you did say off camera, you've got about 1,000 people in the business.
Well, yeah. So in our London about 1,000, but in the UK, I've got about 1,300 people. So
wow. So it's sort of managing all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing it's quite a collaborative role in the sense and feedback orientated, where maybe you learn something new every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
No day's the same. Honestly, I feel like I've been in D&I for almost 3 years now, and my last year was so challenging where I kind of doubted myself. I was literally like, should I go back to recruitment? This is so hard.
Yeah.
But I think because I've committed to it and I want to see it through, I need to keep going and pushing myself and challenging myself and speaking to people and learning from others. And no day's the same.
Exactly. I can imagine it's very, very fulfilling though.
Yeah. Definitely.
Awesome. So I know, going back to the recruitment industry, I guess, I know it's a bit tough, and adding on that layer of diversity as well could be even more challenging. So as a Black woman in the space, have you encountered any challenges, particularly around maybe loneliness or feeling isolated?
Yeah.
I know you've mentioned that kind of on your LinkedIn, and I guess, how have you addressed that and navigated it?
Yeah. So in my first year of recruitment, completely going back in the day, I was the only Black person in the whole company. Wow. I was like one of 4 women as well, recruiters. And I was so young. I was fresh out of uni, and I didn't really know who I was. It sounds so corny, but I wasn't like being my authentic self. And I feel like I was probably acting out of character because I wanted to fit in. Do you know what I mean? So I was changing like how I spoke, for example. I wouldn't have my hair a certain way because I was scared of what people would say. And looking back now as a grown up, or as someone who was more mature, I was experiencing really severe anxiety, but I didn't know what anxiety was back then. So that feeling that I had every single morning where I came into work, I was so nervous and so anxious. I just thought I wasn't good at my job. I was just like, you're just not going to do your job, you know. I used to get so anxious. If any recruiters are out there, whenever a candidate used to call and say they can't make an interview or they were late for an interview, I'd be so scared. I'm literally trying to call the client. I'll be emailing my manager. I was so scared of getting things wrong. And then that's layered with the added fact that I was Black, and I was aware that I was Black in a space that didn't, you know, I didn't feel like I belonged in that space. And then when we hired more Black people, that was nice, but I still didn't feel comfortable in that space. I was so lonely. I really was lonely. So as I've gotten older and now I'm in the space of DE&I, I really champion people who feel alone and feel out of place. And in some ways, it's probably ironic that I'm in this space now because I know how it feels to be the only one. But I think it's taught me to be tenacious and resilient and keep going and pushing through. I've learned a lot from that space.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, like, I know it probably ties in a little bit with the stigma around mental health and speaking up.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's gotten better over the years as well, but I can imagine back then, like, it wasn't. There was a lot of stigma there as well, so that probably made it even more scary to maybe speak up. And you not being aware of what anxiety was. That was probably huge.
And the thing is, like, recruitment is great. Recruitment is really good. When you're good at it, it feels amazing. You get the thrill. Even walking into your offices today, I was like, oh, like the buzz felt so good. But when you feel like you're failing, it's so hard on you, and you doubt how good you are as a human being. You're speaking to people every single day, trying to help them get jobs, trying to get jobs. You're competing with your colleagues as well. You're trying to earn commission. You've got to be in at 7 o'clock. You've got to leave at 7 o'clock. You've got to eat lunch at your desk. That was my experience. And I really struggled when I was an agency recruiter. And I didn't have any role models to look up to. It was just, keep pushing or you're going to fail.
Yeah. And I guess, what advice would you give other professionals who may be feeling like a similar way and that they're in that journey all alone, especially in industries that aren't traditionally known for inclusivity, for example, recruitment?
I think it's always important to find your tribe. And what I mean by that is people, they haven't got to look like you or come from the same background as you, but people who can experience how you're feeling, because usually you feel like you're by yourself, and usually you're not by yourself. People also feel like that. So try and find your tribe and people who are going through a similar situation, because it's so nice to be able to vent to someone who gets it. Find a mentor as well. LinkedIn's a great place to start. I mean, the amount of people that I reach out to on LinkedIn and say, hey, are you free for a coffee? And usually they say yes. It's not like they're going to say no. So I say reach out to people if you feel comfortable in doing so. Find communities as well. So find communities of people that look like you, are in a similar industry to you, and reach out to them. Join their network. Go to events if you can as well. If you're introverted, that's completely fine. Bring a friend with you. You know, there's so many things we can do now. But be brave and don't take it all to heart because it's not you sometimes. It's just the world we're in, unfortunately.
Yeah, I love that. Do you work quite closely with the recruitment team, the internal recruitment team now?
Yeah.
Recruitment
team and whole HR team.
Okay. So in terms of eliminating bias, the hiring process seems like an ongoing challenge in that regard. So what are some proactive steps that companies can take to ensure their recruitment processes are fair and inclusive?
So I think the first thing, and I'll use me as an example with this, when I interviewed for my role at Mediabrands, 3 people interviewed me and they all were from different backgrounds. They all looked completely different. But we all bonded over the fact that we all loved recruitment. And what I appreciated is that it was a diverse interview panel. So there is bias everywhere naturally, but I really appreciated that it wasn't the same person interviewing me. So usually when you go for jobs, it might be 3 people interviewing you and they all look the same. Yeah. And that can be quite intimidating sometimes. So where you can, try and have a diverse interview panel. Yeah. Another thing I would say is to do training with your hiring managers, because the amount of crazy things hiring managers say, like, why did you think you could say that?
Yeah.
So do inclusive recruitment training with your hiring managers. Make sure they all do it, make it mandatory if you need to. That's so important. And you can make training fun. It hasn't been boring. Do scenarios, do quizzes, make things fun. Diverse interview planning, recruitment training. I would also say look at candidates, for example, who might require further support. So one thing that we did in our agency is that we made sure that whenever we sent out information, we would ask candidates if they need reasonable adjustments, because you might have someone who has ADHD, dyslexia, that needs a bit of extra time in the process, for example. So look out for them, and a good way in doing that is sending the candidate the interview questions first.
Yeah.
Which I know everyone wants to do because they're like, oh, what if they cheat? They can use AI. But if you're a good hiring manager or a good recruiter, you will ask the right questions.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So if you can, send the interview question beforehand so the candidate's fully prepared, and that shows how inclusive you're trying to be. Another thing I would do is, if you have employee resource groups in the company, utilize them. Get them involved in the process. That shows your dedication to DEI. It shows how supportive you are. It gives a new perspective. And I think there are ways where you can bring in other people aside from a hiring manager to the process.
Yeah, all really amazing points, and especially the hiring manager one. I think a lot of companies probably don't train hiring managers on like how to go through an interview process, and I've definitely had some questionable interview experiences in my time where I've just been like, why have people said that?
Do you know what's so crazy on that as well is that we forget that hiring managers are not trained interviewers. That's their job.
Yeah.
So how will they know how to interview someone if they've not been taught how to interview someone? So spend a bit of extra care and time with the hiring managers, and you'll see how it changes the process.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, amazing. So moving on, could you share a little bit more about the Black Recruiters Network and why it was so important to create that space?
Yeah, of course. So that Recruiters Network was set up by a wonderful, wonderful colleague and friend called Arsima. She's a Black recruiter herself. She's a co-founder. She set it up, I believe, in 2021, where she noticed that there were quite a few Black recruiters who were kind of like, again, out by themselves. And she was like, why don't you have a community for us? So she created that space to bring all the Black recruiters and HR professionals together, basically. And then a year later, our co-founders, Akbar and Ibrahim, joined as well. Again, they're both Black recruiters who are also founders of their own companies as well. And then we've grown to a team of 7 now, which is amazing. And I think what's so important about that space is that it's seeing people that look like you, who are going through similar things, sharing stories, creating opportunities. And we live in a world where usually there's one of us everywhere. You know, I can't count how many times I've been in a room where it's only one of me. And what is so powerful about Black Recruiters Network is that you find people that look like you, who can relate. And it's so warm, it's safe, you feel like you belong somewhere. We just had our end of year social last year for Christmas. And someone who came to the event, he was like, where have I been? Like, I had no idea this existed. And it was so rewarding to hear that, because I know how he feels, in the sense where you do feel like you're by yourself all the time. And it's so, so hard. You know, you don't really see yourself on TV, you don't see yourself in adverts, and you go to work and you don't see yourself.
No.
It's like, oh, so draining.
Yeah.
So the Black Recruiters Network has helped me personally for my own mental health, because I finally got a space where I feel like I belong, and many others do as well.
Yeah. That is so important, that sense of belonging, and also just feeling understood.
Yeah.
Somewhere where you don't need to internalise everything as well, because that can take a massive mental toll.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, you're doing amazing work, and I guess with everything that you are doing and have done around recruitment, D&I, where do you see the future of those areas heading, and what changes would you like to see in the future?
That's such a loaded question.
It is.
Let's get into it.
Sorry.
Let's get into it. So I think with recruitment, the market is crazy right now. I've never seen anything like it. As in, I don't know what happened. Honestly, it's just gone crazy. So I think I'm hoping recruitment will slightly pick up again. I think with D&I, what I've seen on the news recently is that a lot of companies are kind of like reducing the D&I budget. They're getting rid of the D&I leads, and it's so worried, because D&I is so important to a company culture. It's how people feel. It's how people want to show up to work every day. And if your people aren't happy, they're not going to perform or produce good work. So why wouldn't you want to invest in D&I? And one of my pet peeves is that whenever something serious happens in the world, the first person that's called is me.
Really?
Whenever something serious comes around culture, or, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement, the first people that you do call are your D&I leads. And I want to get to a space where that's not the case. I want people to actually see how important D&I is to a business. If you invest in D&I, how amazing the people perform. And I'm hoping in 5, 10, 20, 50 years, D&I isn't a thing, to the point where people are just doing it naturally.
Yeah.
It will happen now, I get that. But that would be the lifelong goal for D&I.
Yeah.
For me personally, I think I love how D&I and recruitment interlinks. I think that's where my passion lies. I still love recruitment, although I'm not in recruitment anymore. But I love D&I, and I want the recruiters and talent professionals to really look at D&I as part of your job. You know, it's not by itself. If you're good at recruitment, you must be good at D&I as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because when the two come together, that determines the future of your company.
Literally, if you hire really good people, it will be so much easier.
Yeah.
You know, you'll perform really well. But again, I think D&I is sometimes seen as separate, and it's kind of looked at as an afterthought.
Yeah.
And I talk about it every single day, because I want people to remember it, that it's not an afterthought. It's something that's so important to a business.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess you did sort of touch on this in terms of like interview process and whatnot, but in general, what can organisations and individuals start doing right now to start making real meaningful progress towards inclusivity?
Ooh. I think, firstly, understand where you are at as a company. So, for example, a lot of people come up to me and say, Kianna, we haven't got anyone who's diverse in our company, but we want to talk about diversity. I'm like, why don't you just talk about it then? People are so scared to talk about it because they're afraid of getting it wrong. And I get that. D&I is quite touchy. But if you don't talk about it, a candidate will think Do they even care? Have they invested in it? Like, where's the comms around it? And that might mean you might need to invest in someone external to come in. But I think having a clear goal where you want to be is really important. Publish your stats if you're brave enough. Like, look at your numbers and say, this is our pay gap. It's not great, but in a year, in 2 years, we're hoping to get into this percentage. Do you know what I mean? Or if you look at your leadership team, for example, and we see the same kind of face, fair enough. But what we're doing to change that? Have we got someone who's been in the role for 20 years? Can we not upskill people who are a bit more junior and progress them to leadership roles? Do you know what I mean? So start thinking about these things in the long term. But also there are quick wins as well. Like, have we got employee resource groups? No, why not? People are passionate about things. Give them the platform to actually share what they want to share and what they're passionate about. With candidates, right now it's not a candidate market. No. Right now it's not. And I think with the introduction of AI and ChatGPT,
oh gosh, yeah.
I think it's difficult. It is difficult because I had one of my friends, she applied for a role at like 8 p.m. and she got rejected at 8:30 p.m. And she's like, yeah, what happened? Like, what's wrong with my CV? I said, babe, it might just be the AI system.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It might just be the AI system.
I know. And I suppose it's good that companies are now getting penalised for overuse of it.
Yeah.
Because that is just unfair. And does that then cross it into the inclusion?
Yeah, exactly.
Part, because how can a robot determine that?
And I think when I was a recruiter, with CVs, it took me about a minute to look at a CV. But I do know that a lot of recruiters are inundated with thousands of CVs now. So I appreciate that it is really challenging right now. So you are looking for the best candidate possible. But it's kind of hard because some candidates, for example, might have a good CV, but they'll be so good in the role. A CV isn't always the way to tell if a candidate's good.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Not anymore. No. Not anymore. I think there's more to a good candidate than a CV or a cover letter. Look at their LinkedIn, for example. I know a lot of companies are doing the one-way interview videos as well. That seems quite effective. Some candidates don't like doing that as well.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. I don't envy recruiters right now. It's really hard. But I think as trying to be inclusive, you've got to see where you're at right now and do your research. Go to events, see what other companies are doing. And if you think something's amazing and you're not doing it, implement it straight away.
Yeah. Amazing. No, so much to take away from that.
Oh, good. I think we're dropping small gems for you guys.
Yeah, you really are. I'm thinking, God, we need to get you in for a talk. But yeah, no, that's all been so amazing. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And yeah, have a lovely day.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.